Welcome back to part 2 of our delicious conversation with Brent Perkins. He is a serial entrepreneur who scaled multiple companies to over 8 figures and achieved the Inc. 5000 list status. And he did that and then discovered that he kind of found himself feeling empty and depleted. And we talked a lot about that in part 1 of the show. What was going on? How did he end up in that place of creating these great companies, making these massively profitable organizations? And what sort of brought him to the crux of his life to eventually writing a book called Paper Cuts, The Art of Self Delusion. And we talked a lot about what those paper cuts are and what the self-delusion is that we run through. If you didn't catch that in part 1 of the show, please do go back and have another look. And I really encourage you, get out a pen and paper or get out your notepad and just take some notes on it. There's some really important things in here for you to notice about yourself, because this is not just somebody else's story, although we're going to get more into Brent's story in a moment. But you've heard me say this many times. My philosophy is very simple, and that is you don't live in the world, you live in the mirror. Everything's reflecting something to you. The fact that you've clicked on this show, whether it's for the first time or whether you're one of our regular listeners, and thank you for being so. And by the way, if you haven't rated and reviewed the show, that really helps us. So please go do that. That makes a big difference. But you might have just stumbled into this and think, oh, is that real? It's about you. You couldn't be here otherwise. So Brent, coming back from where we left off last time at the end of part 1, I want to talk about this philosophy you have around being a bee. I find that very interesting, and I think it's a really cool way of looking at this, because I think we might mislabel ourselves in this process, and I know you did. Talk to us about what this bee philosophy is.
There's about 8 years ago now, I went on this journey, circumnavigating Mount Rainier, just outside of Seattle, just under 100 miles, 27,000 vertical feet. Just this ridiculous, epic journey to challenge myself. And I was in day 5 of it, and nothing was coming to me. And had calluses and bruises, and it was so painful. And I was just beating myself up, going, how am I day 5 into this place that's beautiful and it's painful, and I'm pushing myself the hardest I ever have, and nothing is coming to me. And then I started to just let it go. Again, here's this let it go thing. I was getting hints at it 8 years before I did it. And I was walking out this part of the trail that was on this kind of volcanic ledge off a glacier. I came to this clearing, and there was this beautiful field of purple flowers. And I was just drained from the day, and I sat down against the log. And I just laid there. I just closed my eyes. And I heard this kind of like humming noise. I'm like, oh, the world is just humming around me. And then it took me a minute or two. I'm like, uh-oh, that's buzzing. I look down, and there's a bee on my leg. And I go, oh, that's pretty interesting. There's bees everywhere. Oh, shit, I'm allergic to bees. And I didn't have an EpiPen with me. And I'm literally in this field of beautiful flowers of bees everywhere. And I didn't get it at the time, and I let the situation play out, and we started walking down the other side, and it hit me, and it's like, this is my lesson. I am a bee, and I choose way too often to sting in life, to show I'm better, show I'm stronger, show I'm whatever. I just sting over and over and over again. And sarcasm was one of my favorite ways to sting. And I looked back, and what was created by these bees through pollination was this amazing thing on this black volcanic ledge, and it changed my perspective a minute ago. And I have a choice in life. I almost never choose it.
So you were choosing to sting people. And you said you stung through many ways with sarcasm. Is that something you grew up with?
I don't specifically remember growing up with sarcasm. You could hide behind the humor. For me, it felt less direct. And I still use sarcasm, although it's in a much more playful, fun way today. But all of the singing I did, it was never to hurt people, right? It was never directly to hurt people. And I don't think bees sting us to hurt us. It's always out of fear. It's always when they're scared. Self-protection. Because it's not a bee's intent to sting you. It wasn't my intent to go sting you. But I forgot that I also had the power to pollinate, to create beauty, to seed and synthesize all this together, which is what pollinating is. It's pulling all the disparate parts together and seeing the unity of it.
So imagining with a listener, a viewer, and they go, yeah, maybe I'm stinging out of some sense of power or self-protection or whatever the reasons are. But I also see myself as a pollinator. Aren't I a pollinator? So Talk to us about how you believed you were a pollinator when you were actually a stinger, because I want people to have that sense of your journey in themselves.
As a leader at any level in an organization or a visionary or an entrepreneur, pollination is part of why we do what we do, right? Whether it's through marketing or through bringing products to the market or solving problems, features and benefits. These are pollination pieces. And what I'm referring to most specifically is our interaction with other humans. I was constantly judging myself, positioning myself, title here, elevation here, status over here. It's these pieces, and then I was stinging in between to make sure that I was in the right pecking order, at the right place, and I the right way, and sounded the right way. And that's more of what I mean by stinging, at least how it showed up in my life. It wasn't about other things I was creating. I didn't pollinate relationships, other humans. I didn't bring out the best in them because I was so comfortable with who I was. I wasn't.
But for me, that's the real art of self-delusion, is this, I know who I am, I'm comfortable with me, I like me. Really? I'm good with that if that's true, but have you actually looked? Or are you saying, I like who I am at 3 inches deep? But what happens when you go 3 feet deep? What happens when you go 3 yards deep? What happens when you go 3 miles deep? What happens then? Or is that a realm that is inaccessible to you because you like who you are at 3 inches? And again, you may have no desire to be anybody but that 3 inches, and that's fine. Then I'm certainly not the person you might want to work with, and probably Brent isn't either.
The defining question here I had to ask myself as I was exploring this topic, and this great question, by the way, what do I like about myself or dislike? And as I started naming off attributes, I like that I'm kind of in shape here, or I like that my hair doesn't have too many grays, or I like these things, or I like this skill or this talent. All those things are superficial. They can all go away. They can all change. And if that's why we like ourselves, we're going to be in trouble at some point.
Now, this brings up something very interesting, and it's a dichotomy of the, certainly Eckhart Tolle philosophy that has become very popular, which is live in the now. And in the now, I'm happy my hair's not gray. Obviously, I'm not speaking about me because mine's very gray. In the now, I'm in great shape. In the now, I'm pretty happy with things, blah, blah, blah. And I think that living in the now can be a very effective form of denial, which is not looking into the depths of who I am or the impact that I'm having. I mean, I'm just living in the present. I was kind of an asshole right now, but I was present with that at least. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know you're very much about living in the present, but this is the dark side of that.
You're right. It is one of the biggest ways we can trick ourselves, in that we are in the present and we do appreciate what we have and who we are at this exact moment. And that's actually okay. But that also can't define us. That's where we get stuck. It's one thing to have gratitude for everything as it stands right at this present moment, but to have those actually be the descriptors, the adjectives, the superlatives that make who we are, that's where we get in trouble.
So help us out here. Give us some practicality, some of your methodologies that people who are listening to this, okay, I'm inspired by this. This is insightful, and I'm questioning some things that I might not have questioned before, but where do I go with this? Because I think a lot of the times these books that are written on these kind of subjects leave us pondering and meandering in a blind alley a lot of the time, because especially if that person's a leader, because they're very function-oriented, they're very actionable.
Yeah, so let me say this as a precursor to that. Different books do different things. Some are very prescriptive. Mine is not. Mine is there to give you permission. And what I mean by that is it gives you permission that you're okay. You're amazing as you are, and that you can explore yourself and start to put down the walls, take off the armor that you've used and has served you well. Let's be clear. Our armor, especially as leaders, has served us well. And it's also prevented us from being able to run that because we want to get as close, because we're always a layer away from people. So when we start to get a little prescriptive, I'm really careful here though, because everybody's journey is so different. I've learned there are things we can do. We have to do this work on our own. There's things we can do to enhance it, to pave the way. So here are some of those things. The tools I found that unlock this piece is really around how do you get present with yourself. So the first one is timeouts. In an NBA basketball game, you get between 5 and 7 timeouts. It does 3 wonderful things. Whether you're a basketball fan or not, I think you'll understand this. Sometimes any athlete just needs a break. They're breathing too hard, they're running too fast. So just even 60 seconds, it can reset you. Sometimes you're about to fall out of bounds or get the ball stolen from you, right? So they save the game. They save a negative action from actually happening. And sometimes you're just not in a good rut. You can't make a shot. Nothing's landing for you. Every decision is going wrong. You take a break, you come back, you don't do anything different. It just reset things. So this is what a timeout could do in the game of basketball, but it can do it in life. When was the last time we took 5 60-second breaks in life, especially in our work life? When have we sat in a meeting, and let's say it's a longer 30-minute meeting, and we just told everybody in there, it's like, hey, let's just all take 60 seconds, close your eyes, I just give you 1 second, and we just breathe. No one's going to tell you not to do that, and you can come back a whole different person, and you can reset your entire room. So I found this is the most powerful thing that's modeled for us in sports. And it was so easy to do with our kids too. Holy cow, it's at work with our kids. And our intimate partners, when we're feeling triggered, ask for just a 60-second pause. It's amazing. The other really, really, really important thing I learned this from a lady named Christina Hassler, and she wrote a book called The Expectation Hangover. And it's about making agreements, not having expectations. And this is as important in your home as it is in your business. I found in my life, I think a lot of the listeners will find this too, as you really start to look at when you show up to work in a meeting at Starbucks, you have all these expectations about what it smells like, what it looks like, who's going to greet you, what's going to happen next, what's the tone of voice, and it just goes on and on, smells, sound, everything. What if we stopped and we let go of all these expectations and we just had agreements? And here's the nuance. So here's why. Expectations are born from an assumption we have. And an assumption that turns into an expectation then turns into us being entitled. Because now we take it a step further and be like, of course I deserve this. Entitlement turns to resentment. And when resentment turns into contempt, all bets are off. Game over, almost impossible to unwind from. But when we make agreements, we may not get exactly what we want, but agreements are a two-way conversation. It allows for a container or a playing field where both sides get a say. And even if we end up landing on one side or the other, at least they came to a place where it's like, I don't necessarily like this, but I can agree to it. And that is so different than me walking in and expecting my kids' teeth to be brushed when I didn't have some sort of agreement that wasn't a demand, right? I'm not a dictator to them. Well, let's sit down and make agreements in all areas of it. It will change everything for you and allow you to stay in this present moment versus this victimhood. I'm so frustrated. Life just keeps happening. Those are my two best tricks.
I think that's really insightful. And there's a lot to pause and take in there from many people. And I'm thinking from the leader point of view, okay, I might be better at doing that with my significant other, with my children, but don't I have to have expectations as a leader of the people I lead? Don't I have to have expectations of my CFO doing the money right, of my COO making shit happen, of my HR, CO, as CHR making sure that I've got the right people on board? How would that work if I don't have expectations?
Every single time expectations will let you down. And it's as simple as writing down your expectations as things that you desire and bringing it to the table, whether it starts in a job listing. You can put down what your side of the agreement, which are your expectations, to the table, and then you can come and negotiate. And in fact, when you open that up and you bring what would be expectations, but you clarify them, because nobody understands what your exact expectations are in your head, right? What does it even mean when you tell an HR person, well, I expect you to have good staff? What does that even mean? Because you're a different guy from today to 6 months from now. So that doesn't even mean the same thing, right? But if you bring those written down and they go, oh, let me ask you some questions here, I'm curious. And you clarify and they go, now I get where you're coming from. Can't do these 5 things. Here's what we could do instead. And you come to this agreement, which is, yeah, I can deliver this in this time frame. Most likely, let's agree to this. You just empowered your staff, which is the key to becoming amazing at business, because then you can step away. Then you can pull out. You can stop working in your business, start working on your business. Take the vacation you need. Let your staff run or let your horizontal employees do what they're hired to do in a beautiful way.
Talk to us about, I'm going to do this my way, your shaggerific ideas. Welcome, baby. You're looking really shaggerific. So tell us about shag, the principle of shag.
I really try to bring humor to all this because life is hard enough without a lot of laughter. And one of the big things that's been evident in my life is how to bring more play. Because play makes us smile, which means I can step out of everything is just this one way and I can get curious. Play allows that, I found in my life. So as I started to share my story and teach some of this stuff, this acronym SHAG just came up as so perfect because as humans, we're scared of our sexuality. And yet it can be the most beautiful thing. And so there is absolutely sexual undertones to this, although it doesn't exist in the definition at all. So SHAG is an acronym that means it's how we ultimately show up to be bold. When we learn how to SHAG, then you can live a bold life. So let's still do this real quick. S is show up and let go. And we've been talking about this in both episodes here. How do you get present? What is this detached connection? That's the show up and let go part. H is hold space and boundaries. Once we are at a place where we have shown up to life fully connected, and yet we've let go of control, we've detached from it, we can start to set healthy boundaries for ourselves. And it means that as we let go and we don't need to prove ourselves or sting anymore, we can also hold space for other people. We can be silent and just sit there, listen, see them. And that's why seeing them, but seeing ourselves enough to set boundaries, that goes together. So holding space and boundaries, ask and receive. And I found as a leader, I stunk at receiving. I could give all the time. I could give gifts. I could give lots of things. I don't need that. No, I'm good. And you can't actually, giving doesn't exist without receiving. It is part and parcel. It's a coin. One side is giving, one side is receiving. They must coexist. Somebody asked me this question. They said, that joy you have when you're Christmas morning, when your kids open your presents or somebody opens something, you're able to get something, you see the joy in their face and you're like, I nailed it. Every time you don't receive, you rob that same joy. You're stealing it from the person giving it every time. So we need to learn how to ask for things, which is also really, really difficult, but be able to receive it at the same time. And the last one, it's give. And sometimes I get asked, why does it last? Well, it's by design. I find as leaders and especially as a parent, giving becomes number one. And we put it in front of even ourselves. And you can't give what you don't have. The oxygen mask is talked about all the time these days, putting it on first. And it's last because if you don't show up and let go, and stop stinging and understand what pollinating looks like, and you don't set boundaries for yourselves that are healthy and start showing up for other people in a way where you're just present and you learn how to ask for things and receive them back. This community, this tribal philosophy of we're all here for each other, not until you've done all those things can you actually give it back. And we have this formula backwards so often. And yet giving is the key element, but you got to set yourself up for it. You got to take these steps first.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in there, and I think it's important for people to go read the book because of that reason, and potentially reach out to you for that reason, because boundaries is something that I find most people do not understand. They confuse boundaries with rules, and rules and boundaries couldn't be more different. Rules are black holes for joy. They just suck the life out of things, whereas boundaries can actually add joy, and there's some depth we can go into with that we don't have time for today, but it's certainly with you, as I said, reading the book and even reaching out to Brent to understand that at a deeper level. You brought up a great analogy, which is one I've used myself, which is the joy you feel when somebody receives something from you. That's a gift in being able to give it that you can only get by them receiving it. And I say, if you gave your kid this gift that you thought was amazing and they went, I don't want it, how would you feel? You'd feel shitty. They'd stolen that moment from you. Well, that's what you do when you don't receive even a compliment. But we, especially as males, we have this nonsense in our heads. Oh, I have to be tough and all that. I'll cry if you give me something. I'm okay with that. Thank you so much for this pure, joyous moment of this little message that you texted me or you sent me or you emailed me or you phoned me and left me a voicemail of that I play constantly because I, too, as a male, particularly as a male in my age bracket, learn to reject that I used to say I had an armor made of plexiglass. You couldn't see it, but everything bounced off it, especially if it was good. If there was little holes that only the shitty stuff could leak into, but not the good stuff. And it takes a long time to learn how to let that in, but it's such an important point that you've made there that I think we all need to do a heck of a lot better at receiving in order to give, because as you said, you can't give on empty, and I think that most of us do. I think that it's also kind of macho, right? It's like, oh, I can always show up. I can always give more. Yeah, but what's the quality of that?
It's actually a selfish give because you're doing it for yourself.
That's the important piece. It's a selfish give because you're doing it for your rep. This is the art of self delusion, is that, I'm a generous person. Are you really? When I say that to somebody, like, you get pissed at me. Are you really? And they go, yes. Ask anybody who knows me. Really? Okay. Have you ever given money to charity? Yes. Do they know where it came from you? Oh, no. I make sure it comes anonymously. Fantastic. Oh, that's good. Yeah, right. So I'm not giving it for me, am I? Really? Does anybody else know you give it? Well, my wife knows. How does she feel about it? Well, she thinks I'm a good man. Okay. So it's not just for you. It's not just for them. It's for you. Or they come back with, well, no, nobody knows. How do you feel? Let's be honest that the altruism is not quite as pure as any of us thinks it is. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm saying let's be honest about it. You came from this background of having these 8-figure businesses, being very successful, now going on the path that you're on. What is something that people tend to get wrong about you?
From the perspective of people who don't know me or are newer in my life, as I've made some of these changes, they think it was easier than it was. They couldn't possibly do it. Or that because I ran some of these successful companies that I didn't cash out with some golden parachute. And it's just easy now because I've got $100 million in my bank account. That's not the situation I'm in. I actually walked away from equity in my last position. And this was that important to me in my life. It was not easy.
Thank you for that, because I think it's very easy for people to look at someone who's done what you've done, or even in what I do, and say, well, yeah, but I'm not like you. I could never do that. There's so little difference, you would not believe it. So thank you for that. It's really, really important. As we come to the end of part 2 of the show, if you were landing something in the field here and having somebody walk away with it and go, okay, this is what I need to do in the next 5 minutes, 5 hours, next 5 days, what would be that thing that you would like, I want to mic drop this on you so that you go and actually take this in? Because information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from the application.
We are emotional beings. We have 5 senses. It is how we interpret and know the world. And none of our 5 senses are directly our intellect, although it processes it. And so many of us leaders hang our hats on the intellect, which is the highest and best achievement of the ego. I know because I always prided myself on it. It got me through sticky situations. It made me money. And it also is a place of intense pain. And understanding that we can feel our emotions, we can trust our heart. We have a gut brain that's connected to our, our brain for a reason. We were designed this way. Your intellect will fail you. It has never made you have amazing connections or great sex or any of these pieces. In fact, when we get out of our way is when all the magical things happen. And if I could give anything back to the world, and it's why I say I'm on a mission for permission, it's to get out of your head, to not only rely on your intellect, to start taking these silent moments, even 60 seconds at a time, to feel inside of you.
60-second breaks to feel. What if you set an alarm on your phone or whatever it is? Take a 60-second break, even every hour, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, to just stop and say, what do I feel? Or what do I think? Not what do I think about what I feel? What do I feel? Feeling into that. As you hear me say every time, stay curious, my friends, stay curious. It is the path to everything you want in your life that will bring you joy. Can only be achieved through that willingness to stay curious, and everything else is a restriction on anything. So it is important. Brent, this has been a pleasure and an honor, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. I really do appreciate it. Again, please tell people where they can find out more about you, about the book.
The book is available on Amazon in all formats, including audio, and I did read the audio. Some people say that makes it a little more interesting. And you can also follow the work I'm doing, whether that's some personal coaching or up-leveling within companies at 3xbold.com. That would connect you to everything I do.
Fabulous. And again, we will make sure that all of that is posted in the show notes. So I hope you'll stay with us to the end. I want to remind you, dear listener, that those who control the meaning for the tribe also control the movement of the tribe. And that's not just true in the tribe, but it's also true within yourself. Leaders committed to positively shaping the political business landscape must tap into what drives human beings, and we can best do that through the emotional source code. I'm Dov Barron. I show businesses, teams, and leaders how to harness their emotional source code to move their tribe, because unified, actualized meaning is the monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for individuals and for companies. Remember, we need your help in staying relevant, so please get over to wherever it is you tune into the podcast from. Do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And of course, a big thank you to you if you are a regular listener. We sincerely appreciate that. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about what exists beyond your intellect, because your intellect may be taking you on a path of self-delusion and death by 1,000 paper cuts. What would happen if you fully stepped into the curiosity of what it is you feel so that you can become a pollinator of your life? I'm Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, in your life, and in your leadership impact. And I am out.